obviously the major news, and there's probably a reason why Miracle is not here. Miracle, for a matter of years, sat in her traditional seat on this show and said that Donald Trump will never be found guilty of a crime. And it just so happened the week that he was found guilty of a crime, she's not here. So I don't know if that's just, it is what it is. She's out doing work representing one hood, but Donald Trump was finally, at least in my opinion, finally found guilty. I'm an abolitionist, except for Trump and January 6ers. I want them to get the maximum jail time, right?
Yeah.
So Trump was found guilty of all 34 felony charges. And so I guess legally, like when you saw, this is your backyard, right? New York, DA Alvin Bragg. A lot of people said he had like the weakest case, but I mean, he went 34 for 34. Like he went out like Jordan. I mean, he was making every shot.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction to, like, well, I guess when he was charged, did you think he had a chance? Did you envision him going 34?
No, when he was initially charged, first of all, it didn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's Donald Trump. I mean,
yeah.
He's a criminal.
It didn't surprise me. It also didn't surprise me that the case made its way to trial. Donald Trump is definitely has a narcissistic personality at his finest.
Yes.
So that definitely didn't surprise me there. However, falsifying business records charges are not the easiest charges to prove. And in fact, these types of charges are not often used. They're kind of like a backdrop, or it could be a catch-all for certain special circumstances.
Right.
Again, they're charges that do exist. They are charges that you could be convicted for, but they're not often used, and they don't often go to trial. So the fact that this case ultimately went to trial was pretty surprising, but on Donald Trump's side, not as surprising, because I would expect him to go to trial on anything because he doesn't know how to accept responsibility.
Yes.
So he was found guilty of 34 counts of the falsifying business records. There's a lot that goes into trial. So when it comes to picking the jury, what judge you have, all of those things factor into whether or not, you're ultimately going to get a conviction.
Yeah.
A lot of us attorneys, and there's a saying that your case is won by the jury that you pick.
Yes.
Won or lost by the jury that you pick. So you've got a Manhattan jury that sat 12 jurors, deliberated for some time. I think it might have been a couple of days.
Like a day and a half.
Yeah, a day and a half. And I think that's a pretty quick verdict, for a case that has this many charges.
Yes.
They've had to go through each and every charge specifically, or every act.
And they was like, guilty. And they were even saying like the Trump's team asked for like the individual
to poll the jury. So,
poll the jury.
Most of us attorneys, when we get a guilty verdict, we want the jury polled because we want to make sure that there's not one juror that's holding out or that has been convinced, so thoroughly convinced or manipulated by the rest of the jurors to come back with a guilty verdict. So we will often have the jury polled if there's a guilty verdict. That's not uncommon at all.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that you say that, because one of the Republican talking points where they were saying they wanted to get some Trump-loving Republican on the juror and just refused to convict him. Like this was like one of the things that they were openly talking about, what they call jury nullification, which was fascinating to see from like this. These are law and order people, obviously law and order until it comes to a rich white man that looks like them. And then, this is how America is.